on the screen for a little while, and then I'll finish up by playing the part, and you can ask me whatever you want to ask me afterwards. So, but this is actually the first track which I sort of put into this setup. So, and then the one which I'm ending with is actually like my newest one. By the way, I've never played to an audience that is sitting down before, which is very strange.
Who wants to sit up? Stand up!
If you feel like dancing, I won't be offended.
Yes! You're a trendsetter, sir.
Okay, so yes, I'm James. I play as alone on this speak into the microphone rather than anyone. And yeah, that is the sort of noise which I make. So, I was supposed to press that first, because that's the music. So there's some facts about me. I was born in 1985, blah blah blah. And some other things there very quickly. Let's skip over that. That's a brief discography. I've actually done things. I started making music in actually 2003 when I got my first bass guitar, yay. And then in 2004 I released an EP, and then I went to university and sort of didn't do anything while I was at university apart from make fine art, because that's where I came here, and it was very fun. I did video and all sorts, great fun. And then by 2011 I graduated, and then I was sort of like, oh, I should make some more music again, so I did, and I started using Logic, and I play a lot of guitar live as well. So I released an EP, and then I'd never actually played live until after I released the EP, so I came to the point where I was like, how am I going to play all this music? I use lots of layers and things because obviously I'm a bedroom musician, and I just go off on one with layers and orchestrations and things like that, and I don't know that many people, so I didn't really have enough people who I could say, hey, can you play that for me? So I was like, how can I do this myself? And I played my first live show with this sort of setup in January last year, and I've been played on Radio 1, woo. And I also supported Hexstatic on Chiptune, which is probably my proudest achievement to date. That was in October. So, what do I use to play live? I use, let's go through the boring stuff first of all. There is an 8-channel mixer in there, MIDI through, because everything's powered by MIDI. There is a guitar looper, which I obviously don't have here right now. There's a looper and a pedal board with lots of delay pedals, because delay is like my favourite sound in the world. There's also an MPC 500 for like samples of drums and things. And I've got a little chaos pad thing up there as well, which makes the whooshy noise. Getting on to the more interesting things now, there is also a NES in there. I wish I had turned this round because there's cables everywhere. But underneath this MPC is a NES made in 1985. To get decent audio out of the NES, you have to modify it, because for some reason they put the audio output on the video right next to the power unit. So it makes a nice buzzing noise. So what you do is, according to that technical diagram there, there's the audio pins, and you plug in your wires there, and then at the bottom there you can see where they come out. It's a bit more technical than that. I actually wrote a guide on how to do it because I couldn't find one online. There was lots of little tips and tricks on how to do it, but there wasn't like a specific guide, and I need step-by-step instructions to do anything, so that helped. To actually make music though, you need a special cartridge. And in that NES is a MIDI cartridge, which is a customised cartridge built by this chap called Wayfar. I don't think that's his real name. You can't get them anymore, sadly. You can find them on eBay occasionally, and you can still order them on his website, but he's been in trouble by not actually sending them to people, so I don't recommend trying to get one apart from off eBay. With that, you can use the NES's sound chip to get 5 channels of audio out. So that's 5 channels. You get 2 pulse channels, 1 triangle, a noise, and a sample thing. I also run, as you can probably see at the top here, that's the Game Boy Advance. And the Game Boy Advance is running another custom cartridge with a program called MGB, which stands for MIDI Game Boy. And to get the MIDI signals from the sequencer to the Game Boy, you need to use a thing called an Arduino board, which uses a wonderful little Arduino project board, and you can plug your MIDI cable in, and then it outputs signals that the Game Boy can understand through its link port. And that's this box here, because I'm not particularly good at packaging my electronics, and I just tend to hack boxes open, and sometimes with a soldering iron, and it makes me feel weird. So don't do that when you just cut open things. Use proper tools or well-ventilated spaces. and you store it on a flash cartridge. Now, flash cartridges are actually still another thing which is quite hard to get hold of for Game Boys and other software. For the main reason is they're actually illegal in this country to bring them in. But you can still order them from America, and they don't seem to, no one's stopped my packages so far. So, yay. The one which I use the most is one called this one on the left here, which is called a Dragon Dirt car, made by a chap called Professor Abrasive, which is a great name. And providing some additional backup to the NES and the Game Boy, I've got two open source DIY synths, the Me Blip and the Shruthi One. Both of those come as kits. You can buy them online, and then you build them and practice your soldering, and they make nice mono sounds. So most of the bass lines which I use these two to create that, because they've got a bit more tonal variety. And one thing about using a NES is that there's no bass in it, which is one reason why you add the modification, because then the bass comes out a second channel, and you can boost it, but it still doesn't boost that much. So I thought, hey, I've got some spare channels, I'll use those instead. Finally, I need something which ties it all together. Now, one thing which I really hated about seeing live electronic music was seeing people just stood behind laptops, which is primarily the reason why I did all of this. It turns out a laptop's a lot lighter, so... What I ended up using was, I had access to an iPad, and this MIDI sequencer came out, which is called Genome. Absolutely fantastic, because it works in the way which I work, because I'm not professionally trained as a musician, I can't read music, but I like seeing patterns and I like seeing things visually. And this is a very visual sequencer. You make your sequences into little blocks, and you address which channel you want them to go to, and then you just trigger each block as a pattern of music. It creates your songs. You can get up to 16 channels, because it's using MIDI, you can use 16 channels. So that's 5 channels from the NES, 4 channels come out of the Game Boy. The Me Blip and the Shruthi take up another 2 channels, and then I've got 2 channels for the MPC for the drums and any additional samples, which leaves me a little bit of leeway if I need to add any more, but unfortunately I don't have any more sockets on my mixer, so I'm pretty much stuck with that as is. So that's how I make music live using these old school video game hardware and some open source stuff and a bit of a journal. There's lots of other things which you can do with gaming consoles and handhelds, which I find fascinating, because that's how I actually started making music. Was the first piece of music software, I dug it out, and it's this music creation for the PlayStation endorsed by Judge Jules. And it got 9 out of 10, which is why I bought it. I started using this in 1998, and thankfully when I tested the memory card, which I thought had music on it, it had wiped it, so you don't get to hear any of that, and I don't want you to. So there's other software available for the Game Boy, which was sort of my first sort of retro, when I got into using things like Game Boys and things, because I had a Game Boy just lying around and I wanted to know how I could use it more creatively. And there is a bespoke cartridge produced called Nano Loop, which is for both the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. There's slightly differing versions. I actually have one here, and it's got the cartridge in. I was going to do a live demo. I think what I would do is say just come over to me and I will show you how it works, because it's on a very small screen. So this has got a Nano Loop in it, and I've also got the No, I don't. I don't have the other one, but there's another one in there as well. That's screenshots of using music for the PlayStation. It's very difficult to use and very unintuitive. I wouldn't recommend it, however there is actually quite a scene online of people recreating songs using this. Korg have actually got an in on the thing. If you use an iPad, you can go to the App Store and you can find emulations of old Korg synthesizers and things, which I think is fantastic. But they actually started in 2008 with a DS emulation of their MS-20 synth, which I actually really wanted to use live because it's got an amazing clock sync on it. Because the biggest problem with using all of these hardware and different devices is keeping them in time, which is why I wanted to use MIDI to keep everything in the same rhythm and everything. And Nano Loop, which I started using a while back, doesn't stay in time with things very well. This does. This will stay in time with like your beats per minute fantastically. The only trouble is that it's a very small screen and you spend a lot of time doing this, so I avoided using that. I do use it occasionally, but not too much. The Game Boy camera, which Nintendo released, that actually has a music sequence in it, and if any of you are familiar with Alec Empire or Atari Teenage Riot, Alec Empire released an album of music just based off the Game Boy camera of digital hardcore. It's very noisy, very loud, quite enjoyable, and there's a final piece of software called LSDJ, or Little Sound DJ. This is the most popular one amongst chip musicians. It's a tracker-based interface, and trackers are essentially, you almost code the music into it using letters to stand for different things. I personally don't get on with trackers because it's letters and numbers and things, and I like pictures with blocks and nice squares. This isn't that. But it's very popular, and you can use Little Sound DJ to create full tracks within just the Game Boy itself. You don't need any external hardware. So that's why it's so popular. So, because I'm obviously not the only chip musician out there, there's loads of people out there doing this, a lot of them in America, all over the world, and in fact it's really popular in Germany for some reason, and lots of other places. So I thought I'd take it upon myself to recommend you more. The first band, if you can see the name there, is Managuchi. They're not that badly drawn in real life. They make like punk rock, happy pop music using just a Nintendo, guitars, and like a full band experience. Which is what I really like from music. It's what just interests me is like taking these things and not just using them on their own, but augmenting it with other instruments. Like, so I play guitar a lot, and I like that sort of thing. Another band is Infinity Shred, which makes sort of post-rock-ish like Mogwai, but with Commodore 64s and Game Boys as well, but they also have the backing of a band and live drums. And this chap called Pixel Hate, or Matthew Applegate, he makes very interesting music using all varieties of hardware and software. He makes his own software, which is absolutely fantastic because he's got the ability to do that. And he's also done a project called Obsolete, where he went into, where is it? The code cracking place in Bletchley Park. He went there and used those machines for code cracking to create music, so I found that fascinating. He also had the joy of working with Damon Albarn and Imogen Heap and people, so. It's a bit weird. Further reading, Handmade Electronic Music by Nicholas Collins is a fantastic book. It gets very simple diagrams about making your own little synthesizers and things, and I sat and made little NAND synths for a while, but they're not particularly musical, which is why I don't really use them, but they are fun to make very loud noises with. It's also got guides on how to hack open old kids' toys and make them into sequencers and other pieces of music. And online there is a big community at chipmusic.org. Lots of guides on how to do things. People post their tracks and rate each other's tracks. Being an online community, they're all dicks to each other. So there's some really talented people sort of between the dicks. And so I recommend going there, but maybe not posting too much. Just read it. There was a film, a documentary called Reformat the Planet, based around a whole festival which occurred in New York. It's sadly cancelled now. There's a thing called Blip Festival in New York City, and there's also been ones in Tokyo and in, it was in Europe somewhere.
Sweden.
Sweden. and lots of chip music. People get together, they have a party, and that's the document of that, with lots of interviews and other things. Excellent film, by the way. It's really well made. So even if you're not particularly interested, I still recommend seeing it. And these are a few other games which, though they are games, they also involve like the creativity of making music, and there's communities around all three of these games making songs, original music, not just covering the music and not just responding to the music of the game, which is important, because I love games like CDs of me playing live for you. You can go and get one. I also have some EPs and stuff like that, so shameless self-promotion going on here. You can come up to me and you can purchase or just take a disc if you want. What I have is a little tin. You can put money in it if you like and take a CD, or you can just take a CD. Okay? I'm going to play another track for you now, and then you'll be the questions and see. When I find the correct files to load. I can't see. Over there. Hello.
Have you thought about emulating things like Game Boys to get the bigger screen size?
Yes, but it's very hard when it's emulated to get it to output to something else, especially when you want to keep it in sync with other devices.
Okay.
So it's all the original hardware. So when it's that way, it's just because you can use MIDI to keep it all in time and everything, and you can send the sequences from the iPad to all the devices at once. It just keeps everything in beat and time. It's nice. Hello.
It seems. I mean, you embrace the qualities of these old, digital machines and this sound, but you dislike the sync. You cannot sync them easily through MIDI. When you try to sync them, why you try to sync them and you don't let them behave as they behave? Because they behave digitally. That's what they do. Because you want this dance.
I like 4/4 beats and dance music. Where it's using like the DS and using the nano loop on its own, they'll slowly go out of time with each other, which is not what I sort of. I don't really aim for that.
You like the 8-bit sound, but you like the sync.
I like the 8-bit sound, yeah. But I like it.
I've got two mini questions. Are you brand loyal? Because everything was Nintendo, not Sega, and I grew up with Mega Drives and things like that. And the other question is, as a observer of what you're doing, I'd really like to be able to see exactly what's going on behind the keyboards there. Have you ever thought of augmenting your sort of live performance with, I don't know, some display of what's going on?
I would love to do video and more interesting things. I've been looking into using processing, because it's getting MIDI signals out of this.
Yeah. Then
using processing to read the same signals and then display certain images or certain patterns on a projector or something. As for what I'm doing, most of what I'm doing is making sure that it sounds good in the mix, and then I'm playing the notes on here. So it's not really that interesting when I get into whether it's interesting or not. I'm often playing on the guitar as well, along with these things and looping and all that. So it gives me just that bit more control over the backing track in a way. And those two tracks, I've got a lot of I can edit them on the fly on the iPad. But all you've really seen there is me pressing some buttons. So I'm more interested in just projecting the music out and doing it that way, and maybe having some visuals at some point.
Okay, it would have been great if we got you.
I should have turned it around the other way.
Well, if Jason was still here, we could have maybe hooked up his graphic equalizer.
Yeah, but it's coming just from an audio source.
Yeah. And what about the brand loyalty? Is it?
And brand loyalty, I personally really don't care.
Okay, cool.
I've seen there's a chap in Australia called Little Scale. He's got a blog which is littlescale.blogspot.com. If you just Google it, you'll find it. And he's been doing absolutely fascinating stuff using the Mega Drive, because the Mega Drive's got a really interesting sound chip in it, which is different from all the other consoles. Because it's a really unique sort of sound which you get out there. It's an FM synth in there. And it's not until you really get to Game Boy, the advanced snares and Game Boys and things. where you get those sort of sounds.
What do you, okay, so it's going to be really foreign boy question, but are you a purist or a non-purist in terms of chiptune music?
I don't really care that much about lyrics and not being
No, it's because I hear this arguments all the time, and it's just basically...
It's like the what is a game question. It's like the chap answered. I enjoy making music on these devices, and they're sort of almost a means to an end. Like I wanted to be a one-man band, and I didn't want to sit behind a laptop. So I was like, well, how can I do that in a way which engages with hardware? Because I like hardware. I like knowing that the device is making that sound through its circuits, not emulating it in any way. So I even feel cheating a little bit by using drums on the MPC sometimes, but then I get over it and then just use it anyway. I do love it when you just find a track. Like someone released a track which was like an amazing dubstep track, and I don't even like dubstep that much because I find it offensive. But it was made entirely on just like one net, and it sounded incredible. I just wanted to know how they'd done it, and it was done through Family Tracker, which is the tracker device which you can use with a net as well. Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering, even if video stream isn't a viable option, would you consider any other ways of making your music more visual, like perhaps what we saw at the beginning with the sound bars, or maybe some sort of display? I don't know what you usually do, but I mean the Alone thing was quite nice. And
that was my presentation. I usually don't have anything, so
okay.
I should invest in more presentations.
You said that you work for Image and Heat. I was wondering if you'd seen her musical gloves.
Yeah, I saw them on. It was on the Science Club thing. She was using Connect and to control the Ableton and stuff like that. I find that absolutely fascinating, and I would love to get into it more. But in one way, it complicates my setup, and it's quite complicated already. And I want to focus on making sure that the music comes out right first. So, like visually, like I was saying before, I'm really interested in using processing to just visualize the MIDI data which is coming out of the sequencer, because that is essentially all the music that's coming out of those signals, and being able to visualize that on a projector in the right way would be lovely. But I just don't want to I see a lot of VJs and things, and it's all sort of very samey, and it sort of becomes like this visual mush, and I don't like that.
So I was thinking, have you had any musical education or training, or as a fine artist, I'm assuming that you would love to take it in a visual direction?
I've had no musical training. I had a couple of guitar lessons about 3 years ago.
Okay, maybe just these two more. Simon, Mark. Sorry, well you call the shots, James.
Yeah, I can't see it.
I was just, so you've got the Game Boy and the Nintendo. Is that, are you complete now, or are there other 80s consoles that you want to pull in the mix?
My wife is shaking her head. Not really, actually. I actually am quite content with what I've got at the moment, and I haven't really used this in recording very much until now. So every time I've recorded in the past, it's just been layering guitars and layering samples and drum beats and things, just in Logic and just on the computer. So I'm sort of getting my head around recording this in a way that comes out nicely, and I want to be able to, like, when I release something again, it be representational of how I play live, because I've got some of my old EP with the Fizzing, if you like. But it doesn't sound anything like this. It sounds like layers of guitars with some like synthesizers. So I really want to keep exploring with what I've got. Also, I haven't got enough inputs on my mixer, and I don't want to buy another mixer because it's expensive. One more?
I was just thinking, in terms of visual things, would you ever consider collaborating with somebody who thought that your sound was extraordinary?
Yeah, by all means. animations and all sorts really. I don't mind collaborating with people. When it's almost like a on the track here. I went to the Blip Festival in New York, and a couple of years, yeah, it was 2 years ago now, and it was fantastic because they had visualists there who used their own NESs and their own Game Boys to produce the visuals which goes alongside the bands which were playing. So they were completely separate, but they were generating it in time with the music, and they were using all sorts of visual software, and there is a lot of like hacked hardware, so you hack the actual video output to make it output in a different way, and stuff like that, and it's fascinating. And I wish I could get into that, but I need to focus on playing all the right notes. So.
The right notes, that's an interesting concept.
Well, the notes.
And then, I mean, the theme that seems to have come out from some of the game and things like that this evening is storytelling and the way that you play the music. There's a sort of drama to it. So is that intentional, or is that just because it's using games which have drama in them?
I think it's sort of partly because the sounds of old games consoles make you think of those consoles and those experiences that you've had with them. So you've played that adventure with Mario running across the landscape to save the princess. So I personally, I played it hundreds of times. I love those games, and those sounds mirror that adventure in a way. And you, because I think I got my first NES when I was 7, and then I've never stopped playing games. And I love those noises which they make. And since they've become bigger in a way, they've lost that. Nothing sounds like a game anymore. Everything's got an orchestral score. And, like you play Gears of War, and it's got heavy metal behind it, and while you're gutting things, and it's not. It doesn't have that charm of just like the happy little blinky plunks and the evil sort of distorted noises, which were just evil noises coming out of these little tiny synthesizer chips.
Actually, it's got a sense of storytelling without knowing the game. So I have never played a game apart from Chase. He was my student in his requirement or assessment that I played this game and I loved it. But I'd never played a game in my life before, and so those sounds actually do tell stories. They don't just tell stories because of a memory. They tell stories because they tell stories, and I think that that's really interesting. And I think it's something that outside of the world of dorks even, there's something very enchanting about what you're doing. I think
it might be just the way I compose, which is sort of piece it together in a.
Yeah.
I start at one end and then end at another. I don't really like going back to where I started from, but that's just how I sort of grown up composing. I like making pop songs as well, but I find that the longer form suits things better.
Okay, thanks very much, James.